Hello students, Indian Contract Act. In today's lesson, we will be focusing on breach of contract, remedies for breach, and we also discuss about the Information Technology Act 2000. So, first let us focus on breach of contract. When an obligation involved in a contract is broken, then it is termed as breach of contract. Again, I repeat, when an obligation involved in a contract is broken, then it is termed as breach of contract. If a party to contract does not fulfill the contractual obligation and make the performance of contract impossible, then the person is liable for damages incurred by injured party. We have two types of breach of contract. One is called actual breach of contract, and other one is anticipatory or constructive breach of contract. Actual breach of contract takes place at the time when the performance is due or during the performance of the contract. Breach of contract at the time when the performance is due. In case of a breach of contract at the time when the performance is due, one party of a contract fails or refuses to perform promise on due date. For example, A promises B that he will deliver 50 bags of rice to B on 1st May 2020. On the due date, A refuses to make delivery. The contract between A and B is discharged by breach of contract. If time is not an essential aspect of the contract and the party in breach wants to perform his promise after the fixed time, then the other party may accept the performance on the condition that the party in breach would compensate to him for non-performance at the fixed time. If the party not in breach wants to claim compensation from the party in breach, then a prior notice concerning that should be sent to the party in breach. Breach of contract during the performance of the contract. In case of breach of contract during the performance of the contract, one party of a contract refuses to perform his promise during the performance of a contract. The refusal to perform the promise might be either by express repudiation or implied repudiation. Express repudiation. In case of express repudiation, one party, after performing his promise to some extent, that is partially, refuses to perform the remaining promise by an action or by word. A promises B that he will supply 12 bags of rice in equal installments at a certain price. After supplying 4 bags of rice, A said to Q that he will not supply remaining 8 bags of rice. There is an express repudiation by B. by A. Implied repudiation. In case of implied repudiation, one party by his act makes the performance of a contract impossible during the performance of a contract. Repudiation implied from the action of the repudiating party. Anticipatory or constructive breach of contract. Anticipatory breach of contract takes place when one party of a contract informs the other party that he will not be performing his promise. The intention of not performing the promise is declared prior the due date. Refusal to perform the promise might be either through express repudiation or implied repudiation. Express repudiation. Under this, a party of contract expresses his intention of not performing the contract either by word or by action before the due date. P promises Q that he will supply 50 bags of rice to Q on 21st May 2020. Prior to this due date, that is on 18th May 2020, P informs Q that he won't be able to supply 50 bags of rice to him. Here there is an anticipatory breach of contract by express repudiation. Implied repudiation. A party of a contract carries out some actions which makes the performance of a contract impossible. A promises B he will sell his house to B at 25 lakh rupees on 20th May 2020. But before this date, A sold his house to C, a third party. The action of A made the performance of a contract impossible. This is an anticipatory breach of contract by implied repudiation. Section 39 of the Indian Contract Act is concerned with doctrine of anticipatory breach. Now let us focus on the remedies available for breach of a contract. Every contract has some rights and obligations. A right does not have any worth if there is no remedy to enforce that right in a law court at the time of its infringement of breach of contract. Remedy is given by law through which right can be enforced. The remedies for the injured party at the time of breach of contract. We have remedies, namely rescission of the contract, suit for damages, suit upon quantum merit, suit for specific performance of the contract, suit for injunction. Rescission of the contract. If one party breaks the contract, then the other party can sue for considering the contract as cancelled and rejecting to perform further. In this situation, he becomes aware of all his obligations under the contract. Example, X promises to sell his car to Z, and Z agrees to make payment on delivery of car. X does not deliver the car. Z is discharged from liability to pay the price. Rescission is granted by the court when plaintiff considers the contract as voidable, contract is unlawful as the causes are not clear, and the defendant is blamed more than plaintiff. Section 27 of the Specific Relief Act 1963 outlines the situation in which the court may not cancel the contract. When the contract is either expressly or impliedly approved by the plaintiff, or when the parties cannot occupy their original positions due to the changing conditions, or when the third party has acquired rights in good faith and for value while maintaining the contract, or when the party agreed to cancel only a part of contract, that part cannot be separated from the rest of the contract. Suit for damage. Damages are referred to monetary compensation allowed to injured party as a remedy for breach of contract. The purpose of providing damage is to put the injured party in the same position as he was before the occurrence of loss. Suit upon quantum merit. The meaning of the term quantum merit is as much as earned. An obligation to sue on a quantum merit occurs when a contract is performed by one party to some extent and becomes discharged by the breach of contract of other party. Thus, the party is not sued for original contract that has been discharged, but for implied promise made by the other party to pay in the event of breach. Suit for specific performance of the contract. Damages are not always an appropriate remedy for the breach of contract. In such situations, the court may address the party in the breach to perform his promise based on the terms and conditions of the contract. It is a direction for specific performance of the contract by the court in convenience of the party which is not in breach. The following are the situations wherein the specific performance of a contract can be enforced in the responsibility of the court. When non-performance of act cannot be compensated in money, it is an inadequate relief. When actual damage for non-performance of act cannot be determined, when it is not possible to get the compensation in terms of money for the non-performance of the act. The following are the cases where specific performance will not be provided: when damages are regarded as an appropriate remedy, when contract is not specific or unfair to either party, when contract is revocable by its nature, when trustees make the contract in breach of their trust, when contract involves a personal matter, when the contract is made by a company on the basis of the powers mentioned in the memorandum of association. The performance of such contracts which cannot be supervised by the court. Suit for injunction. Injunction refers to the order given by the court to restrict the party in breach from performing what he promised to not to perform. Usually, providing an injunction by the court is discretionary. Court normally refuses to grant an injunction to restrict the breach of contract, wherein promisor make commitment not to do something which is negative in substance even though it is not in form. Various damages under breach of contract. Damages are referred to monetary compensation allowed to injured party as a remedy for breach of contract. The purpose of providing damage is to put the injured party in the same position as he was before the occurrence of loss. Rules for awarding various types of damages under breach of contract. Ordinary damages, special damages. Ordinary damages are damages arising naturally. Special damages are damages in contemplation of the parties. If a contract is broken due to the breach of one party, then injured party is liable to recover damages from other party. Such damages arise naturally, directly, in usual course of business due to breach. These damages are known as ordinary damages. Example, P has a contract to sell 50 quintal of rice to Q, 1000 per quintal, and payment is to be done at the time of delivery. But on delivery date, the price of rice increased to 1100 per quintal, and P refused to sell the rice. Q is entitled to claim for damage from P for breach of contract. Special damages. Special damages can be recovered due to the breach of contract where the purpose of contract was already brought into the notice of the party. But if party fails to serve the purpose according to the contract, then injured party is eligible to claim for damages. Special damages can be claimed only in special circumstances. Example, be a trader delivers some goods to railway company and ask them to deliver at a place where festival was to be held. On the consignment note, it was clearly instructed that it should be delivered before Saturday, but railway authorities failed to deliver the goods on specified day. B is liable to recover his damages or loss of profit from railway company. Vindictive or exemplary damages. Vindictive or exemplary damages has no place in contract of law. In few cases, these damages are compensated in case of breach of promise to marry and in case of wrongly dishonoring of check by banker. Nominal damages. Nominal damages refer to a nominal loss where injured party does not suffer any loss due to breach of contract. This loss is very small. It is just to acknowledge that plaintiff has proved his point and won. Damages for loss of reputation. Such damages are generally not recoverable. In some exceptional cases, it is awarded. For example, if a banker wrongly refuses to honor the check of a trader, then the trader is eligible to claim the damages for the loss of reputation in the market, even if it has a rule that the smaller the value of dishonor of check, the higher will be the compensation award. Damages for inconvenience and comfort. Under this, damages are claimed for the physical inconvenience and discomfort suffered from the injured party. Example, A with his wife and children took bus tickets for a particular place, but bus has dropped them 5 kilometers before their destination due to midnight. A and his family were unable to get other transportation facility, so they have walked to reach their destination and suffered physical inconvenience. So A is liable to recover damage. Mitigation of damages. It is duty of injured party to take all necessary steps to mitigate the loss consequent to the breach. His claim of loss is eligible to extent of breach only, but not to his negligence of mitigating the loss. Cost of decree. The injured party is entitled to recover damages along with the cost of decree. Damages agreed upon in advance. Under this, injured party is entitled to recover damages only to an extent agreed in contract to be paid at the time of failure of performance or breach of contract. Under section 74, a reasonable amount is agreed between both the parties in advance for a breach of contract. Example, in a contract between P and Q, P promises to pay 500 on Monday. If failed to pay, then 1000 will be paid to Q as a compensation. Cases related to breach of contract. Watson agreed to sell his ship to James for 1,60,000 rupees. James breached the same, not buying the ship. Watson, in want of money, forced to sell the ship 1,50,000 to others. Explain the justice available to Watson. In the above case, a contract was made between Watson and James, wherein the Watson agreed to sell his ship to James for 1,60,000, but James breached the contract by not buying the ship. In this situation, Watson can sue James for the breach of contract, as the law provides justice to injured party in terms of rescission. Rescission is a remedy available to the suffering party to overcome the loss or damage. Thus, rescission is a remedy available to Watson. N, a film actress, agreed to act for W and no one else during that year, but she entered into contract with the judge, explained rights of W. An agreement of service under which N, a film actress, agreed to act for W for a specific period of time and no one else during that period is a valid agreement. In this case, even though N agreed to act for W and no one else, she entered into a contract with the judge. So under this situation, W will have following rights under the Indian Contract Act 1872, and the film actress cannot be forced to work with W, and may be compelled not to work with any other film producer except W as per the terms of the agreement. Repair B's house and receive payment in advance. A repairs but not according to the contract. B is entitled to recover from A the additional cost of making the repairs as per the contract. S. B is entitled to recover from A the additional cost of making the repairs as per the contract. C contracted with the railway company to supply 3,000 tons of railway chains at certain price in installments. After supplying 1,700 tons, railway company asked C to stop further supply. What are the rights of C? Mr. C has following rights with regard to contract with the railway company. Rescission of the contract. If one party breaks the contract, then the other party can sue for considering the contract as cancelled and rejecting to perform further. In this situation, he becomes aware of all his obligations under the contract. Suit for damages. Damages are referred to monetary compensation allowed to injured party as a remedy for breach of contract. The purpose of providing damage is to put the injured party in the same position as he was before the occurrence of loss. Suit upon quantum merit. The meaning of the term quantum merit is as much as earned. An obligation to sue on a quantum merit occurs when a contract is performed by one party to some extent and becomes discharged by the breach of contract of other party. Thus, that party is not sued for original contract that has been discharged, but for implied promise made by the other party to pay in the event of breach. Suit for specific performance of the contract. Damages are not always an appropriate remedy for the breach. In such situations, the court may address the party in the breach to perform promise based on the terms and conditions of the contract. It is a direction for specific performance of the contract by court in inconvenience of the party which is not in the breach. Information Technology Act 2000. The Indian Information Technology Act 2000 was enabled on 17th October 2000 in India. This is the first cyber law which is established to regulate the information technology or computerized activities of India. This act is formed based on the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, which has the aim of providing equal legal treatment to the users of electronic communication in United States. However, the main purpose behind the introduction of Information Technology Act 2000 in India to boost and encourage electronic commerce, electronic transactions and other activities concerned with business, commerce, trade, etc. Information Technology Act 2000 helps the government to prevent the misuse arising through the use of electronic media. In short, it can be concluded that Information Technology Act 2000 consists of various provisions relating to e-commerce, e-governance, e-record, e-signature, digital signature, etc. Let us focus on the scope of Information Technology Act 2000. The scope or applicability of Information Technology Act 2000, or it applies to the online transactions in India and outside India. It may not be applied in some areas like Negotiable Instrument Act, which is defined in Section 13 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, to a power of attorney, which is defined in Section 1A of Power of Attorney Act 1882, to a contract of sale of any immovable property. Objectives of Information Technology Act 2000. The main aim of this act is to provide legal recognition for transactions which are conducted in electronic format via electronic data interchange. The key objectives which are enshrined in the preamble of the Act are as follows: to provide legal recognition to all e-commerce transactions, to encourage and facilitate e-governance, to encourage and facilitate e-commerce, to encourage the use of electronic storage of data and information as an eco-friendly alternative instead of paper-based storage, to make the following amendments: Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act 1872, the Bankers Book Evidence Act 1891, Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, to look into and resolve the matters arising as a result of the above mentioned objectives. The Information Technology Act was passed to bring change in the modern law of electronic commerce, which was adopted by the United Nations Commission on International Trade, to manage national and international level cyber crimes, to provide legal sanction for transferring of funds, to facilitate government departments in electronic filing of documents. State positive aspects or features of Information Technology Act 2000. Information Technology Act 2000 has outlined several cyber crimes before the implementation of the Indian cyber law. There was no redressal body for solving the issue, and Indians were unable to seek any legal remedy for such issues. But Information Technology Act 2000 has changed the complete scenario of by solving out the cyber crimes taking place in the society. Before the introduction of Information Technology Act 2000, email was not allowed to be used as a legal form of communication and not served as a legal evidence in the court of law. Information Technology Act 2000 has changed the complete scenario by legally identifying and accepting the electronic format. Information Technology Act is in fact a latest form. The Information Technology Act 2000 has offered such a legal infrastructure that it helps in performing e-commerce in an easy manner by the corporates, which was otherwise not possible before the introduction of Indian cyber law. Information Technology Act 2000 has provided legal validity and sanction to digital signatures which are used by the corporates to carry out their transactions online. Nowadays, corporate sector companies are usually saving their information on their own computers besides maintaining a separate backup. If in case any company's data is being hacked, copied or destroyed, then in such a case the company holds an opportunity to have a statutory remedy according to the Information Technology Act 2000. The company may claim for the monetary damages in the form of compensation not more than 1 crore. Not more than 1 crore. Negative aspects of Information Technology Act 2000. E-commerce basically relies on the domain, but the Information Technology Act 2000 does not cover the issues of the domain name of e-commerce. Information Technology Act even fails to address the rights and liabilities of the domain name holders. The Information Technology Act 2000 usually results in jurisdiction issues. Information Technology Act 2000 has failed to solve the issues of e-commerce, such as monitoring and controlling the content and privacy issues. Antitrust issues are completely ignored by Information Technology Act 2000. Information Technology Act 2000 ignores the issue pertaining to the intellectual property rights. Information Technology Act fails to include several types of internet crimes and cyber crimes such as cyber theft, cyber defamation, prevailing abusement of the chat room, cyber fraud, cyber stalking, cyber harassment, cyber squatting. Information Technology Act 2000 does not provide any proper framework for the implementation of Indian cyber law. Besides this, India does not have good internet users, and the government and police officials are also not intelligent enough to deal with the internet issues. The Information Technology Act does not cover negotiable instruments as it is not capable of controlling the electronic payment gateways. Let us study about the digital signature. A digital signature is one of the methods of encryption used to provide authentication. The main idea of the digital signature is to protect the message or data from modifications. Digital signature is very popular in the world of network security. It is a kind of asymmetric cryptography used to support the security properties of a handwritten signature on paper. The digital signature scheme provides two algorithms. One algorithm is for signing, which requires the user's secret or private key, and the other algorithm is for verifying signatures, which require the user's public key. The result of the signature process is called the digital signature. Digital signatures are used to provide authentication of an electronic information. Two users A and B. A wants to send a draft of a contract to B. A ensures B that the message is unchanged and is sent by him only. The sender A writes his draft of a contract into an email and applies a special function known as hash function on the message. This creates the checksum of the information. Then A uses its private key that encrypts the checksum by applying its private key obtained from public private key authority. The encrypted message becomes the A's digital signature of the message. The checksum and the message is then sent to the receiver. At the other end, the receiver B receives the message and the checksum. In order to make sure that the message is undamaged from the sender A, the receiver B applies the same hash function on the received message. This produces a checksum. It also uses A's public key to decrypt the checksum is received with the message. The two checksums are then compared. If they are matching, then the received message is undamaged and signature is valid one. Otherwise, the message is changed and signature is invalid. Signature, digital signature certificate. Digital signature certificates are the certificates that are used to verify one's identity when he is doing any business or transactions on the internet. These certificates are issued by a trusted third party called as certificate authority or certification authority. A digital certificate contains the user's name, a serial number, a copy of the certificate holder's public key, expiration data, and also the digital signatures of the certification authority. The digital signatures usually conform to X.509 standard. In order to issue the digital signature, the clarifying authority shall comply with the provisions of section 35 of the Act along the following. The certifying authority provides the digital signature certificate only when the subscriber submits the application provided by the certifying authority. Application need to be approved by the certifying authority for the issue of certificate. The authority shall not issue any interim digital signature certificate. In order to generate the digital signature certificate, the certifying authority may look for the receipt of an authorized subscriber who made request for new digital signature certificates or digital signature certificates renewal. In case digital signature certificate is suspended or revoked, it is to be ensured that the certificate must contain the information which is sufficient enough to identify the repositories wherein suspension of the certificate will be listed. The subscriber identity method used for the issuing the digital signature certificate shall be specified under the certification practice statement. More importantly, it is accountable to the approval of the controller when the license is applied. The certification authority provides a person a new digital signature certificate based on originating digital certificate. Thereafter, the certifying authority issue a new digital signature certificate may investigate to figure out it is obligatory to suspend or revoke the newly issued digital signature certificate. The certifying authority allows the subscriber to verify the contents of the digital signature certificate before it is accepted by the subscriber. Upon the acceptance of issued digital signature certificate by the subscriber, the certifying authority will keep a copy of the certificate in a repository. After issuing the certificate to subscriber, authority finds any facts that may affect the reliability or validity of issued certificate, then it will immediately inform to the subscriber. A designated expiry date is must for all the issued digital signature certificate. Electronic signature. According to the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act, electronic signature is defined as an electronic sound, symbol, or process attached to logically associated with a record and executed by a person with the intent to sign the record. The provisions regarding the electronic signature are stated in Section 3A. According to this section, an electronic signature would be considered as authentic if in case it is regarded as reliable. It is mentioned in the second schedule. The electronic signature would be regarded as reliable in case it meets the following conditions. Authentication date or signature creation data should be within the context linked associated with the signatory. The authentication data or signature creation data should be within the control of the signatory at the time of signing. The changes made after affixing the electronic signature must be detectable. The changes made after the authentication of electronic signature must be detectable. It must meet all the conditions which are given by the central government. The method for verifying and ascertaining the electronic signature authentication is prescribed by the central government. In the second schedule, the signature which is not authenticate electronic signature in nature would be included in this schedule. Electronic signature certificates. The sections 35 to 39 of the Information Technology Act 2000 deals with the issue, suspension and revocation of the electronic and digital signature certificate. Issue of a certificate. The central government has prescribed a form through which any person can apply for the issue of electronic signature certificate to the certifying authority. The fee for application is not more than 25,000 rupees and it is to be paid by the applied person to the certifying authority. However, there would be different fee for different classes. Electronic governance. Electronic governance refers to the process of filing and submission of any form or application or any other document with the government department in the electronic format. Examples: submission of the passport form online, filing of income tax returns online, Me Seva Kendras, E-Seva Kendras facilitate the public in paying their bills and apply for government services online. The main benefit of e-governance is that it is less costly, quick, effective, efficient in nature. It also ensures accuracy in the performance of transactions. Rules relating to e-governance. The Act provides the legal recognition of digital signatures, digital documents including e-filing of income tax returns, e-filing of patents or copyrights, etc. According to Section 4 of the Information Technology Act, document is considered as an e-document. It meets the following conditions. Document is present in the electronic format or electronic record. The document is used for future reference. Section 5 of the Act deals with the legal recognition of digital signatures. Any e-document bearing the signature of a person according to the prescribed manner as per the central government would be considered as a valid digital signature. Section 5 signature includes a handwritten sign or any other valid mark or stamp on the e-document. Electronic world e-governance has become an integral part of day-to-day life. Now, let us discuss about the different dimensions of e-governance. Government to citizen, as its name suggests, the model of e-governance will connect the citizens of a country to their government. It employs various democratic and public services. The government can contact their citizens and can listen to their suggestions, thereby improving the society. E-citizen, e-transport, e-education, e-medicine, e-registration. E-Citizen, this will provide integrated service centers which offer many services to citizens at one place. Me Seva centers, E-Seva centers in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. E-Transport, road transport authority related services including registration of motor vehicles, issue of driving license, payment of tax, fee collection, etc. E-education, these centers will provide educational services to citizens. E-medicines, hospitals of different states are linked to provide a collaborative and improved medical service. E-registration provides registration of property, transfer of property, payment of tax. Consumer to government, this model deals with the interaction of citizens with government, applications like electronic voting, census, tax payment, etc. Government to business, industries, businesses or enterprises or chief sources of income to a country. Business usually require a lot of interaction with the government when paying taxes, fees, getting licenses, etc. A service named e-taxation will provide business with all these needs. In order to develop government to business services, government must implement standards, provide secure payment mechanisms, implement public key infrastructure for performing secure and authentic transactions. Government to NGO. This model of e-governance aims at building connections between government and non-government organizations, which helps in betterment of the society. It can be achieved through interaction and publication. Citizens and NGOs should be allowed to involve in government activities through publication and interaction. Government to government. This model aims in developing and improving government processes. E-administration. This model involves linking of all government offices into a network so that they can carry out administrative jobs easily. E-secretariat aims at linking various government departments such that there can be different exchange of information. E-police aims at keeping track of both police personnel and criminals. The personnel database will store records of police officers, their previous posting, specialization, etc. This information will help in intelligent postings and promotion of police officials. E-police service also include online FIR, finding case status, etc. E-court, this area aims at transforming the mutual legal system into an automated system. The judges of higher courts like Supreme Court and High Court can consider appeals from a remote location using the intranet. The judges can give their decisions online based on the recorded facts of the case. Coming to the significance of IT Act, the Information Technology Act 2000 plays a significant role in regulating the cyber crime prevailing in India. This act was introduced for providing legal recognition for all the business activities taking place in cyberspace electronically. The highlights are it helps in controlling, regulating, and protecting the online business transactions. It helps business organizations to maintain proper business records electronically instead of paperwork. It helps to regulate all types of cyber crimes like piracy, hacking, etc. It provides legal recognition to digital signature. It provides protection to the data of companies if the data is hacked, copied, or destroyed. It provides compensation to the victims against the cyber crimes. It encourages the use of electronic storage of data and information. It facilitates electronic governance and electronic commerce. It It is enacted with various cyber laws, appellate tribunals to deal with the matters of cyber crime against educating authorities. It allows electronic filing of documents. It helps in online business transactions. It is very significant in case of taking actions against offenses related to cyber crimes. Thus, the IT Act 2000 is very significant, important in the current business environment. In current scenario, internet has become common, and through internet only every business transaction is processed. Purchasing or selling of products through online stores, bank transactions, booking of tickets, business application, uh, company digital signature, processing, etc. Everywhere, a lot of information technology is used, and there is a lot of significance of IT Act 2000. Thank you very much.